Welcome to podcast number 43. Once again, I appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to these. And I very much appreciate the donations. I appreciate everybody writing in. And this is another podcast that comes off the request list. And it's one that it's interesting because as I went through and was looking at all the requests, I had quite a few requests for this one, which is how to choose a riding coach. And funny, why would I do a podcast on this and have you go elsewhere? But no, it's I think this is a great thing. And I think as we all embrace proper riding fundamentals, as we all embrace the correct techniques, it's just going to grow our sport and make things better. So absolutely, I want people to get trained. I want people to get better and continue with our sport. So yeah, let's get right into it. And oh my gosh, yep, I do have another sponsor for this podcast. Look at that. That's 2 podcasts in a row with sponsors. I think it's fantastic. And again, it's very much appreciated and keeps me going with this. And this podcast is sponsored by Track Time, which is a Pacific Northwest track day company. And they do things a little bit differently than some of the other track day companies, where I'm up at their track days. I hold classroom sessions, and we basically have got classroom sessions that we do, and we take the theme of those classroom sessions and we can go and ride. And one thing that this company does is they work a lot with newer riders. They also work with less people in the groups. The days cost a little bit more money, but it's amazing quality track time, hence the name. So yeah, Alan and JD have been big supporters of mine. And again, I want to support the people that are supporting the sport and helping grow it, and showcasing to people that there is a pathway to get better. And that's also why this is themed very well with this podcast. So, how to choose a riding coach. This one is going to be pretty involved, so hang in there with a lot, because as I got into the framework of this podcast, it ended up being a lot of information. And I consulted with my team. I consulted with some of my riders, and asked them as well what they thought about when looking for riding or a rider coach or choosing a riding coach. So first thing, let's just get some of this stuff out of the way, which is what does a coach do, right? What does a coach do? And the simple term is a coach helps you get good at stuff, right? That helps you get good at stuff. But we need to go much, much further than that, right? What does a world-class professional coach do? And what a world-class professional coach does is they work on developing emotional control by establishing the correct techniques. So yes, there's going to be some emotion in there, but we want to be driven. We want to be driven by our techniques. That's what we're going to put into place. The emotion is what helps get us there, right? Helps us training and helps us getting those things, built up so you can access those techniques. So they develop emotional control by establishing the correct techniques. And then by establishing the correct techniques, that's where you gain emotional control. So I wanted to write that down is realize that that's what the coach is establishing. The coach also helps, the proper coach also helps you love your training, love your sport. And again, I think, when you look at youth sports and you look at all these different things, and why don't we have a bigger width of coaches available for our sport? When you look at Google volleyball coach, Google tennis coach, and there's all these different things, but in motorcycling we just don't have that. I think we're onto some really cool things within the motorcycle industry with coaching. And as much as I would like to be selfish and try to get everything for myself, that's just not how it should be, right? We need to grow our sport and build our sport. And I think the more we get people to embrace coaching overall, the better it's going to be. And that's also where, if you look at we also have this the US MCA being established, United States Motorcycle Coaching Association. That's part of their mission as well, right? Let's get us to love our training and love our sport and develop a pathway for anybody that wants to ride at any level. So that's what a coach does, right? Helps you get good at stuff. And then it takes it a much of a step further by developing the techniques and learning to control your emotions. So you're thinking, well, why do I need a coach? Well, what we need is we need objective critique, right? So, even we have Valentino Rossi, right? 9-time world champion. He has a coach. Well, you think he's a 9-time world champion, he should be able to do whatever he needs to do and figure it out. If he can't objectively critique his own riding, then who can? So we all need that objectiveness to be able to look at our riding and look at what's next, right? And part of what I tell my riders when I work with them, and I do tell a lot of my clients, is I will be friendly, but I'm not going to be your friend. And the reason being is that when you ride with your friends, it's just a different aspect, right? And friends won't hold friends accountable as professionals as much as a professional coach would, right? They're just not going to see the objectiveness. My group, even though I got filmed a few weeks ago, and I sat down with a couple of my guys and I went over my film. Right. So I still need to go, wow, I did turn a little bit too late there. I was a little bit of a lazy ass there. I was off that apex more than I should be. And then I can look at it as why. So we all need that. And one thing I want you to think about as well while we're into this is, amateur coaching. Amateur coaching, what it does is, it might get you the first 10 or 20 or 30%, and there's nothing wrong with that. But amateur coaching will eventually limit your growth, and it really will lead to either burnout or heartache, or you're just trying too hard in the wrong thing. What we want to look at is having world-class professional coaching, and what that does is it really does provide a limitless path that your only limit then becomes your desire, and it all goes back to having someone that allows you to love your training and love your sport. So that's just our entry fee for this. So when we start looking for a rider coach, I would like you to ask yourself a question. Are you ready to be coached? I mean, as silly as that sounds, I've worked with riders that want to be coached. Oh, work with him, he's going to make you faster. Well, I go to work with them and I'm typically met either with arguments or, contradictions. And I don't mind that, right? I don't mind, somebody telling me a different viewpoint or somebody showing me something differently. I don't mind that. But basically what it boiled down to is they weren't ready to be coached. And that's something that I think you need to ask yourself is, am I coachable? Am I ready to be coached? And if you are, well, then guess what? Keep listening. So here's a bunch of thoughts that I put together and some of my advisors put together as well. And I'll take you through these. And these are some of the things that you can do to vet the person or group or whatever it is that you're looking at helping you out with your riding. And the first one is what does your potential coach do for a living? And as silly as that sounds, this is what I do. This is all I do, right? Is work on my riding and work on my coaching and work on my craft and work on my technique. And what that allows me is it allows me to continually looking at new communication techniques and ways to make the sport better and shortcut your learning curve. So if a person's not doing it as a profession, right, is that compromised? And I know a lot of guys that have other full-time jobs that can coach at a very, very high level. But I think it's worth noting, asking, what does your potential coach do for a living? And then we look at how long have they been riding. And I think that there's merit in that as well, is, we don't want to necessarily go off, well, I've been riding for 30 years, so you should listen to me. But then again, if a person's only been riding for a year, then, there's something there as well. So I think the question is valid on how long have they been riding. I think asking them if they've raced. And while that's not necessarily the overall thing if they've raced or not, but there's a speed issue. And I like one thing that one of the things that we talk about at the Yamaha school is, you can listen to you want to listen to the guy that's fast, but also doesn't fall down. You don't want to listen to the guy that's fast, but always falls down. And you also want to listen to the guy that never falls down, that's not very fast. So I think, when I say have they raced, what I'm saying is can they run a pace enough, a high enough pace, a quick enough pace that allows all their techniques to shine through. So there's some merit there. And if they've raced, you can ask them, how well did they do? Right? So you can look at it and say, well, gosh, let's see where your performance really is at. And then we can start to move on a little bit. And you can ask them also, I think a great question is, when's the last time they crashed? I think that's always a good one to put people under a little bit of pressure. And of course, I have no problem answering that question. But I think, asking that question, when's the last time that you crashed and why, is also a good one. Don't be afraid of that. So another question, right? Why are they coaching? Why do they want to coach? What is it? Is it for the free track time? Or is it to actually invest in their client and make the sport better? So, what or who made them coach? Ask that question. Another big question is, where does their information come from? And this really was a defining moment for me in my coaching, or when I started this process, because I wanted to learn from what the best in the world were doing, and that's where Freddie Spencer's came into play. And when you listen to the Freddies, right, and you listen to these guys, they never say I, they say we. Oh, well, what we're doing is this, and what we want to look for is this, and the best thing that we have found is this. And so that statement is an encompassing statement of what the best in the world are doing, what we as a collective group are doing. And I think that that's a big deal. The I part of it is if it's what I do, well, then you have to defer to what's the best that rider's ever ridden, what's the best that rider's ever coached. And it may be at a very, very high level. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you have to ask yourself, do you want to emulate that specific thing? Or do you want to emulate what the best in the world are doing, or what the majority of the best riders in the world are doing? So a very good question to look for is the I versus we. And another one to look for or talk about is it advice or technique? I have another great podcast on this, and you can look at, there's a big difference between, hey, going through turn two, just go through turn two quicker, right? You just need to get the thing, just sail the thing there a little bit more, carry more speed, and drive off harder, right? That's advice. What we're looking for is specific technique, and specific technique that gets you to understand why you're doing the things you're doing, and of course, giving you report cards for them as well. So I think that is a huge deal as well. Short term or long term. I think there's nothing wrong with having both. I've had riders come up to me and say, look, I know I've got these issues. I am only concerned with the Friday before the race weekend practice. I need to learn how to get through turn 6 and 7 better, or whatever it might be, turn whatever. And that's what's holding me back. And as long as that expectation is set up front, then hey, that's great. That's their short-term goal, right? Long-term, they may have other issues going on, but let's establish short-term goal versus long-term goals. And if we can make those two align, and we can keep inching that alignment together, then fantastic. So short-term or long-term, I think that's something that's also very, very important. Then we start to move into some of these other aspects, which is logistics, right? Where is their training held? Is it held at a track day? Is it held at a parking lot? Is it one-on-one? Is it two-on-one? Is it a group format? And then, depending on what you're looking at there, is the curriculum set up for the student, or is the curriculum set up for the instructor? That's a big part. And when you really think about that, are they really taking your needs, right? Your individual needs into hand? If it's like, well, if it's a group format and everybody's doing things at a certain time, or doing something along this way, or not being individualized, then that's something that's not working for your goals. That's something that you need to think about as well. So is the curriculum for the student or the instructor? I think that's also a problem, or something to take a look at. Another one, is there a follow-up procedure? I know, at least on the RIC days that we do, also in the online training programs that we have, We have a very extensive follow-up procedure that goes over when we do the online training. It follows up very individually with everything that we do. So ask and see if there's a follow-up procedure for that. So another interesting one that the question that came up, I've seen this before as well. We find students getting taught for what the coach needs. So, the coach is whatever the latest flavor of the week is. They're working on whether maybe it's body position, or maybe it's something that they was mentioned in the last MotoGP race. So let's make sure that it all goes back to what your needs are and following those report cards as well. If there's drills involved, how does the drill relate to the technique? And I think that is really important. And this all goes back to understanding, having your coach understand the sport, understanding, what they're trying to be able to teach you. And how does that actually relate? Does the drill actually relate to your specific need, right? To the specific thing that's holding you back? And that segue is really great into is, being able to identify what is holding you back. And they've got to be able to present a solution to fix it, right? So there has to be a clear-cut solution to make these things happen. So a couple things that I want to mention. So I talked to a couple of people about some of their experiences with picking a coach, right? So having done motorcycle instruction, car instruction, as well as some cycling as well. I think it's good to get some additional viewpoints on that. I'll take a cycling viewpoint of this as well, right? So we look at Kristen Hill, right? So she rides, and she said she wanted someone who was professional, that was invested in me as much as me, and I really like that statement, right? Someone that's serious about it and gives as much, right, as gives as much as themselves. And I think that was a great way to look at it. And also what you talked about is someone who's not going to tell me someone's not going to say something that they didn't want to hear, right? She's like, no, I want to be fully invested in this. And it's sometimes it's not comfortable. That goes back to, are you coachable? And I know with some of the riders that I work with on a very, very high level, like, again, I can use Jake Lewis or JD Beach as a great example, right? They're humble enough and they have enough humility to go, I don't have all the answers. I'm riding at the level of my thought process, the level of my ability. And now I need somebody else to be able to figure that out, the rest of that out for me. Honestly, that's the mark of a champion, because the way that works with riders is you have riders that have got this incredible innate ability, right? They're just born with all these great natural skills, and their sign and their sight and their sense of speed and all these things. Then you have other riders, and honestly, myself is included in that, which I don't have that, right? So I've had to work on technique. The rider that keeps working on technique will surpass the rider that has this incredible natural ability but doesn't work on their riding, right? The rider with the technique will surpass them just about every single time. Matt Mladen's a great example of that. But it's the rider that has that natural ability that also works on technique, right? That also gets coached. Those are the ones, right? Look at the top level of MotoGP. Look at the top level of all these riders, and you'll see that they need someone to be able to give them that level. And as riding coaching becomes more prevalent, I think that the timing of this is fantastic. A great thing to think about, or one thing I'll leave you with on this at the end, is we're seeing a lot more riding coaching in the World Championship Series, especially in the MotoGP, Moto2, Moto3 series. See a little bit in World Superbike, not a lot. We're seeing some more in Moto America as well, and even on the club levels as well. So Alex Lowe's, a good interview with Alex Lowe's a few weeks ago, was comparing MotoGP to World Superbike, since he's got now experience with both. And he says in MotoGP, they ride better. It's that simple, right? You can say tires, you can say bikes, or whatever it is. The bottom line is they ride better. And, coaching at that level, it's not an accident, right? It's not an accident that they're getting that input to go to those next levels. And the more precise our sport gets, right, they're all doing the same basic things. It's just different degree of application and making that degree of application even more precise. So there you go. What to look for in a riding coach, right? Well, how to choose a riding coach. You got plenty to think about. Copyright 2017, Ken Hill Coaching, all rights reserved.